Donald Trump's announcement that he will be again seeking the White House has got to be cable news, right? Has got to be the cable news folks, because they're like, yes, yes, our meal ticket is back, y'all. And lest we not forget, it was the media, it was cable news, it was mainstream media outlets that gave us Trump to begin with, right? They helped to create, pardon me, let me not say helped. How silly of me. They created his political platform. They enabled his credibility and legitimacy as a political voice. Don't you forget that both CNN, MSNBC, well, we know Fox. I don't even count Fox when we talk about cable news, but the CNN and MSNBC used to routinely stop their broadcast in the middle to go directly to Trump live with his announcement about Obama's birth certificate and all kinds of crazy shit. So, of course, the mainstream media is most excited about Donald Trump. Now, this is a problem for us. This is a problem for us because given the fact that the media helped to elevate Trump to a legitimate, credible political voice, at least to some, not to people that watch this channel, not to most people, but to enough people who very clearly voted for him for president, not once but twice, and who still deny the fact that he even lost the 2020 election. There's a lot of still ongoing momentum and support for Donald Trump to run for president. I don't think he named a running mate, but I don't really think that matters. I do not really think that matters at this point. But what I am seeing, especially from mainstream media outlets, and again, and I'm going to focus less today about Trump himself and more so about the people that brought us Trump. Okay, because Trump did not appear out of nowhere. No, because he is a wealthy white real estate mogul, or at least was at some point during his long time in the spotlight. The media just gave him de facto legitimacy. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like in the Constitution, whereas the first people who had the only legitimate right to vote were white male landowners, right? And so the media enables the same folks, right? I mean, we hear a lot about Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, and they have these wonderful ideas about how to save the planet. Elon Musk is another one. A person who is given this legitimacy completely unearned simply because of their race, gender, and social status. Trump was the prototype for that, or at least the modern day prototype for that. So they used to let Trump on Meet the Press. They used to let Trump hold press conferences where CNN and MSNBC again would stop their live coverage and go directly to Trump. After Tuesday's election results, where a lot of the Trump-backed candidates lost, certain people, Chuck Todd, certain people went on their respective television shows and completely focused, zeroed in on the potential Trump announcement, which again happened yesterday. But I want us to go to Sunday's Meet the Press show, everybody, because the Tuesday election said a lot of things to me. And it didn't say that America was tired of election deniers. That wasn't my takeaway. That was not my takeaway from the election results. It didn't say that Trump is not still a force out here to be reckoned with, and despite the fact that most of his backed candidates lost. No, the reason why the Democrats lost the House, and let's be clear, I think that's official. Yes, did that come down today that the Democrats have officially lost the House? They had the Republicans, the GOP do hold a very narrow margin, and the Senate is pretty much deadlocked, 50-50, or whatever the outcome of the Georgia runoff will be. I think it'll be 51-50. Okay, not a lot of wiggle room here for Joe Biden to get anything done legislatively, but I guess he's used to that. But anyway, hold on, circling back to Chuck Todd, because we got to dunk on Chuck Todd here for a second. Instead of focusing on the fact that, in my opinion, abortion was the driving issue that caused the Republicans to not win as many seats as they expected, because after the Supreme Court ruling in Dobbs, half of the country, or at least people that live in 26 states of the country and who have the ability to get pregnant, they had their bodily autonomy stripped, their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Yeah, that shit went away. And I still stick to my statement that a lot of conservative women and men probably went into the ballot box And if they lived in a state where abortion was potentially on the ballot, in a handful of different states that were trying to do constitutional amendments, everything related to abortion went in the favor of abortion access and abortion rights, even if there's still, even if these things happen in abortion restrictive states such as Kentucky and Montana. But regardless, to me, abortion is what was the driving thing. And some of the polling that Meet the Press features here in a second, I'm going to show you, it actually validates that. So, but before, but before we get into the nuts and bolts, I just want to show you guys a very quick example of the ways that the mainstream media is so giddy, just ecstatic at the possibility of having to cover again another Trump campaign. Okay. And Chuck Todd had Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy on his show. And I could have easily pulled the entire interview because it was a mess of nothing. It was a bunch of bad questions with no answers and expectedly no good follow-up from the Meet the Press moderator. But I want you guys to count, and I want to see it in the chat because I know y'all can count. I want y'all to count how many questions Chuck Todd managed to ask Senator Cassidy about Donald Trump. Are you got? And if it's after 5 where you are, we could turn this into a quick drinking game. So run and go get your bottles. run and go get your shots, or get your wine glass, or if you don't drink, go get your cannabis accoutrements and take a hit every time you hear Chuck Todd ask a question about Donald Trump. Let's take a look.
It sounds like you just blame Donald Trump for the Senate, at least. Is that fair? You know, it's interesting. You have not been shy about your criticism of Donald Trump. You voted to convict him after January 6th. When you look at your vote and you look at the votes of some of your colleagues that we know were thinking about it but decided not to, in hindsight, how big of a mistake was it not to convict Trump when you had the chance? I guess I ask this, if this is the result of these elections, but the Republican Party still has sort of the same leadership at RNC, Ronna McDaniel, Kevin McCarthy of House Republicans, Mitch McConnell of Senate Republicans, and of course Donald Trump is sort of the leader out there. If there's no change there, do you think that's a problem for Republicans going forward? I understand that's where you should go. How do you get the party there? Because you know how hard it is. You know the base of this party still loves Donald Trump. Or do you think that this midterm could break that spell? Look, Donald Trump's announcing his candidacy for president on Tuesday, whether anybody wants him to or not. And we understand people have tried to get him to postpone this decision. He's not going to do that. Are you at all concerned that his just mere presence is just going to make it that much harder for Republicans to recover? I understand that, and I know where you're trying to head here, but Donald Trump doesn't want to head in the direction you want to head. How do you stop that direction? What do you do? Do you rally around? Is it time to rally around Ron DeSantis now? Can you imagine having to support Donald Trump again if he's the nominee of your party? And if that candidate's Donald Trump, do you plan on supporting that candidate?
Oh, my God. You would think that there would be better questions to ask besides Donald Trump. And you heard Chuck Todd there spend the majority of the interview he had with the Republican senator asking him specifically about Trump. Now, the reason I said I could have included the entire interview, because conversely, Bill Cassidy wasn't hitting on shit, okay? He wasn't talking about shit. He mentioned only 2 issues that he personally has worked on in the Senate that he thinks that the Republicans need to brag about. And one of them was the surprise medical billing, some legislation that he worked on that he says helped to stave off surprise bills for 11 million Americans. Doesn't sound like a lot of people. Sounds good, but it sounds like teeny tiny, teeny tiny progress. And he also bragged about the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which of course we know was spearheaded by Democrats and greatly pruned back by both the GOP and the Democrats in order to get a semblance of it passed. And Cassidy kept replying that, you know, the party of the Republicans, we need to talk about our values and our plans and our policies. But he named no values, no policies, no principles. And Chuck Todd, being the very feckless, inadequate, borderline incompetent. Is that safe to say, chat? Would y'all say Chuck Todd's kind of incompetent? I would, because he sits in that big chair and he asks the most mundane questions, and it's all centered around personality. It's never centered around policies. Or if it is, it's because that the mainstream media has been forced to speak about policies in a substantive way by either independent media outlets like this or by the public at large, i.e., people taken to the streets and forcing the conversation. But if left up to their own devices, the mainstream media outlets are just going to plug this as Trump the maverick. Now, we know that they don't give him quote unquote favorable coverage, but they don't have to give him favorable coverage. If they're giving him any coverage at all, it's going to be favorable, right? How did Trump manage to barely spend anything during his inaugural presidential campaign? He ran on his own money, but he didn't hardly spend no money. You know why? Well, y'all know why. Because the mainstream was giving him free airtime to the tunes of probably many millions of dollars. Airtime that he literally could not buy was given to him. So they platformed Trump. They unleashed this demon upon the rest of us. And the simple-minded among the rest of us, I'm speaking about conservatives. I'm speaking about conservatives here. They just ate it up. And they were glad to. And the press also ate it up because, Trump is a revenue generator, period, point blank. And that is why CNN, MSNBC, and the rest of them are so excited that he is returning to the race. Now, which is going to be funny to me about this is the framing from other outlets is that Fox and Rupert Murdoch owned media have already dumped Trump. Well, fret not, because Chuck Todd, MSNBC, and CNN will be there to elevate him once again. Even if conservative media outlets are dialing back their coverage about Donald Trump, the mainstream, the other ones will not. And we will hear as much about Trump as we ever did. And the setup between the showdown, Trump versus DeSantis, is a storyline that the media is going to hammer upon our brains for the next 18 months and some change.